Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship. Thank you so much for joining us today. Last week, we talked about cultivating friendships and connection with your child on the spectrum. So if you did not get a chance to tune into that episode, please do so. There's some great, wonderful nuggets of information in there for you. This week, we're going to talk about grounding techniques for autism, which I'm really excited about. This is something new that we've been exploring with Drayson, and I consider this different than the decompression techniques. Grounding to me is totally different than de-escalating, if that makes sense. Like, we've done a lot of things to help with coping strategies with Drayson, but grounding is definitely something new and different that we've been exploring in our household. Grounding techniques can be incredibly beneficial for managing nervousness and anxiety, and they can also have the potential to evoke thought, creativity, and even balance for your kiddo. Whether you're a parent, a caregiver, or even an educator, or even an individual with autism, this episode is going to be highly beneficial for you to listen in on today. First, let's discuss what grounding techniques are. Essentially, these are strategies designed to help someone reconnect within the present moment, right? And they can be particularly useful for individuals with autism who may experience heightened levels of anxiety or sensory overload. I know Drayson definitely experiences that. And they can help take attention away from the anxious thought and redirect them back into the physical world itself. So when Drayson was younger, we would do things, and we still do, when he feels overwhelmed or he gets really upset, we do like breathing exercises and things like that. But grounding to me is a little bit different, similar but different, and it's almost a little bit of a level up. And now that he's entering preteens, we're seeing the changes starting to happen, and he needs something more than just counting to 5, right? Or counting to 10. Because I don't know about you guys, but there's days where I'm like, I try to count to 10 and it's just not going to work. Okay. So there's many, many benefits to grounding, to using grounding techniques. And why are they so effective? Like I mentioned, calming nervous and anxiety. Techniques like deep breathing, sensory exercises, and mindfulness can help soothe the nervous system as well and create that calm feeling. This is, like I said, key for Drayson because his anxiety definitely can spike. And now that he's starting to go through becoming a teenager here pretty soon, he's right around the corner from it. I've definitely seen an uptick in his anxiety and even just not being as open to wanting to do things because of that anxiety and being so nervous. As I mentioned, it can help with creativity. Grounding can clear mental clutter, making room for new ideas and creative thinking to happen. So especially if we're doing a lesson or a goal with Drayson and he's having a hard time, this can really help to calm him and help spark that creativity component. And it helps to achieve balance. Establishing a sense of physical and emotional balance can improve overall well-being, and it helps to improve quality of life as a whole, which is super important. I'm going to dive into some practical grounding techniques that you can incorporate into your daily life. I'm going to explain and give you some simple instructions on how you can start these techniques today, and does not take long to do at all. These are really simple, easy things that you can do. So as we've talked about in previous show episodes, deep breathing can also be very beneficial. So we're going to start off with that one. It's one of the simplest yet most effective grounding techniques that you can do. So when you focus on your breath, you can calm your mind and body within minutes. So first thing you want to do is you just want to sit or lie down in a comfortable position. Close your eyes if that feels good to you, and take a deep breath in through your nose and for a count of 4. So when you breathe in, just to yourself, count for 4. Hold that breath for a count of 4, and then exhale slowly out of your mouth through a count of 6. So think 4, 4, 6. So breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and then let out through your mouth for 6, a count of 6. and repeat that process several times until you feel more grounded. I don't know if you've personally ever tried this, but if you haven't, I highly recommend that you do, because it really can calm you within a matter of minutes. And a lot of times, Drayson at first sometimes couldn't do to the count of 4. So even if it's just to the count of 2, 1, 2, and then, and then try to stretch it out a little bit more. That's something that we've been able to do with Drayson, is the deep breathing techniques, and that's helped quite a bit. But doing it several times and repeatedly is where the grounding technique actually comes in, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing this at least 4 or 5 times, reevaluating how he's feeling. Where does the nervousness or anxiousness feel in his body? And if he still feels nervousness or anxiousness throughout his body, we continue the deep breathing. And like I said, again, breathing in for a count of 4, holding for 4, and then exhale on the out for a count of 6. Sensory exercises are also really great, and they're excellent grounding because they involve engaging the senses, bringing the focus back into the physical world for them. Touch, you can hold a textured object like a stress ball, a fidget spinner, or a piece of fabric. Drayson has his favorite blanket, so sometimes just holding the fabric, the softness of the fabric is all that he needs. And you can have squares of fabric too. Like if you're out and you feel like they might need it, keep a square of fabric with you in your bag, or a fidget spinner, or whatever works for your child. Use descriptive terms to help them identify that as well, because that also helps open up communication at the same time without even realizing it, or they don't realize it, so that it doesn't look so structured or feel so structured for them. So you can use descriptive terms to help them identify. Sight, look around and name 3 to 5 things that you can see and describe them in detail. So if you're trying to break their concentration from something because they are nervous or anxious, start looking around the room. Have them pick 3 to 5 things. Describe them in detail. Get them to segue into different points of conversation. That will also help. Sound, listen to the sounds around you. Identify different noises from soft to loud. This is a little bit harder for Drayson just because loud noises, if they're too loud, it does overwhelm him, and then he's done. He doesn't want anything to do with it. But we've also found that frequency sounds, if he needs to just step away from the environment itself, kind of helps. We do relaxation music that has like low frequency sounds built into them. And that's been really beneficial, just to give him a moment to step away and then to be able to step back into that environment. Smell, this could be a tricky one for you if your child does have certain aversions to specific smells, but use a scented item like essential oils or a piece of fruit. That works if you don't have any essential oils on hand. If you have an orange or an apple, you can always use a piece of fruit instead, and take a moment to really inhale the scent, right? And this one always makes me laugh a little bit because I had just gotten this new car freshener, and it was like a cinnamon vanilla smell. And I thought it smelled so good. And I realized that Drayson was kind of in a bad mood that morning, but he picked up the air freshener and he went to smell it, and he put it back down. And I said, "Does that smell good?" And he said, "No, it smells horrible." And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I don't know if it was his mood, because the next day he got in the car and he said that it smelled good. But I had told him, I said, "Well, I like the smell." And so I said, "Should we take it out of the car? Will it bother you?" And he said, "No." So I kept it in the car. But it was really funny because he's never said to me the word horrible. Like, that's horrible. So I thought that was kind of a funny thing. So be careful with smells. I think he was just maybe in a bad mood that day, because now he tells me that it smells really good. And be able to use, again, descriptive words. Does it smell sweet? Does it smell sour? Like, what does it smell like? Give them identifying terms to say what it smells like. And again, it breaks their concentration from what they're currently nervous or anxious about. Taste, you can sometimes disrupt them with the senses with taste, giving them a mint or a piece of gum to chew. Pay attention. It'll help them to focus to pay attention to the taste and the texture of that mint or piece of gum. Dee recently tried a piece of cinnamon gum, which I thought was really funny. He didn't like it, but I did find out that he likes spearmint, which I was really surprised. So he does have some spearmint mints. And when he does feel nervous or anxious, I can give him one of those mints, and it kind of breaks his concentration a little bit from what he's currently nervous or anxious about, which I think is really, really awesome. Consider practicing mindfulness and meditation. That's also one in our house that we've recently started. Mindfulness and meditation are powerful tools for grounding. These practices teach us to observe our thoughts without judgment and bring our attention back to the present moment. So again, it's bringing them back into that present moment once the decompression actually happens. So some quick instructions for this. It does not have to be anything elaborate or hard. Sometimes we think meditation has to be, this planned out thing, and it really doesn't need to be. All you need to do is find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. If you have to tell your family that you're going to go meditate, tell them you're going to go meditate. The boys know that when I say I'm going to go meditate, they know not to come into the room and maybe just let me have a moment. Sit comfortably with your eyes closed. Focus on your breathing, noticing the rise and fall of your chest. And that's something that we've also worked with Drayson on. So I would put my hand on his chest, and as he's sitting there with his eyes closed breathing, and I tell him to breathe in and out, I will say, can you feel my hand? Can you feel your chest rising and falling? And I kind of put a little pressure on his chest. If your mind wanders, gently try to bring it back to your breath. And if it wanders, that's okay too. But having your child focus on their breath, on their breathing during that while their eyes are closed and they're trying to go into a state of meditation is highly beneficial for them. You can also use guided meditation if that's more beneficial for you. I know for me personally, guided meditation works a lot better. Drayson likes guided meditation. That's what he prefers. There's lots of different apps that you can use that provide guided meditation, or even videos if you prefer more structured guidance within that mindfulness and meditation. It works great for all of us because of the structure, and Dee does really well with structure, as I've mentioned before in previous episodes. So you can also use grounding techniques as a way to spark thought and creativity, which is something that I think that we tend not to think about. When we talk about grounding techniques, we talk often about, calming anxiety and nervousness, but you can actually use grounding techniques to really spark that thought and creativity within yourself and even within your child. They aren't just for calming. They can also be used to create a way of deeper thinking for your child. So one way, just a couple suggestions that we've tried in the past is nature walks, going out for walks. Taking a walk in nature can be incredibly grounding and inspiring. Sights, sounds, and smells of the outdoors can stimulate creative thinking and provide a mental rest for you and your kiddo. Choose a natural setting, whether it's a park, a beach, or a forest that works. Like I said, we're in Arizona, so I love Arizona for the fact that we can drive up north and be in the mountains around pine trees in like 3 hours, or we can head the opposite direction and we can be, in Mexico on the beach by the water. And so I love the fact that we have several options that aren't super far away. We can take advantage of a road trip, get away for a few days, and also get a change of scenery. So choose a natural setting that works best for you and your family. Walk at a leisurely pace when you go for a walk. Pay attention to your surroundings. Maybe ask what they hear. What do you hear? What sounds do you hear? What does that sound like? What does that look like? Can you see it? Like if you hear birds chirping, can you see the birds? Oh, well, how come we can't see the birds? Well, yeah, they're up in the trees. We can't see them. They're hiding, really kind of getting more into some descriptive details about nature will be highly, highly beneficial. The rustling of the trees, that's my favorite, is hearing the wind blow through the trees. I always tell Drayson that that's one of my favorites. But the feeling of grounding beneath your feet is what's important. Sit in the middle, stop, pause in the middle of the walk, sit in the middle of the walk and maybe observe. We've done that before with Drayson, and allow your mind to wander and see where your thoughts take you. Sometimes I will just sit with Drayson and we don't say anything at all. We just listen to the sounds. I might say, do you hear that bird? And he'll say yes. Or do you hear the wind? And he'll say yes. But sometimes just allowing your mind to sit and wander is what you need. And I've noticed that in Drayson as well. Sometimes that's just what he needs, is just to be able to sit and not engage in conversation, but just more observe, go into observation mode. Journaling can also be really powerful. Writing can be a powerful grounding tool, and that's something that we don't always think about as well. But it also taps into your creativity, and it also creates reflective thinking, which is great. This can be structured with questions that they can answer at first. So getting that journal, maybe writing down some of those general questions that they can answer will help them to spark their creativity and starting to journal. Typing also works too if handwriting is difficult. I know Drayson has struggled sometimes with handwriting, but he actually has been learning how to type. So if there's a digital type of journal that works, that's something that you can also think about, or just create your own digital journal with, a simple Word document, but something that will work for them. So sometimes typing might be a little bit better. So I always say, take the laptop just outside and sit outside and let them type up some things that are on their mind. Let them express themselves if that's a little bit easier than writing for your kiddo. We try to encourage setting aside about 10 to 15 minutes each day for journaling. Start with, like I said, a structured set of questions, like maybe how did today go, or use visuals. Today I felt happy, or I felt unhappy. You can even maybe have them illustrate the faces in the journal of how they were feeling for the day. So it doesn't necessarily have to be words or writing. It could just even be pictures or thoughts or whatever comes to their mind. But it's important to maybe start with some structured questions just to point them in that general direction. So don't worry about grammar or structure or anything like that. Just let the words flow. Let them get it out on paper or type it out, whichever works best for them. And let them write about anything that comes to mind. Their thoughts, their feelings. Maybe it could be an experience that they had. You never know. And respect their privacy too. If it's something that they maybe don't want to necessarily share with you, that's okay too. But, or maybe journal side by side. I've gotten out my journal before and said, let's just sit for a minute. And that works really, really well. My absolute favorite, though, for grounding is actually, believe it or not, arts and crafts activities. And if you have not tried doing an arts and crafts and grounding, it is highly, highly beneficial. I love it. It sparks my creativity, and I love that. Engaging in those activities can bring you into the present moment while also fostering that creativity. So choose something that you enjoy. Could be drawing, painting, sculpting. I've noticed that Drayson recently is really getting into art. So I think we have painting coming up on the horizon in our home, which I'm really excited about. But focus on the process rather than the outcome. So enjoy the process of doing that, getting the paints together, getting the canvas, choosing the colors, choosing the maybe the photo you want to paint it after, or just randomly painting at will. But focus on the process rather than the outcome. Notice colors, textures, shapes as you create. These are great conversation pieces as well that you can have with your child, is, by invoking those conversations of, I really like that color, or is that your favorite color? What's your favorite color? Or why did you pick that color? Or the texture of that looks fantastic. It's not just about giving praise, but also having conversations with them to try to see what's going on in that beautiful mind of theirs. Allow yourself to experiment and play with different techniques. So just remember that when you engage in arts and crafts activities, that there's not a right way or a wrong way necessarily. It's just to have fun and to just go for it. And as I've mentioned in previous shows, create a balanced routine. Incorporating grounding techniques into your daily routine can create a balanced and structured environment, which is particularly beneficial for individuals with autism. So consistency, as I've always said, is key. Right? Try to practice grounding techniques at the same time, maybe each day. Start off that way, see if it helps. Try a variety of different techniques to keep things interesting and engaging. So maybe one day it's deep breathing. The next day it's meditation. The next day it's arts and crafts. Or maybe it's just a couple times a week. Do whatever works best within your schedule to create those moments. And tailor the techniques to suit your individual preferences and sensory sensitivities. Like I said, we've got to meet our kids where they're at. So maybe they're not ready for that big art project, right? Maybe they're not ready for 20 minutes of meditation. So meet them where they're at. Start small, because that will be hugely beneficial for you in the long run. Encouraging words. This is a big one for me. When you're grounding somebody or when you're grounding alongside with your child, be encouraging. And implementing those grounding techniques may take some time and practice. And that's always something to keep in mind. But the benefits are well worth it, and they're very much worth the effort, in my opinion. Whether you're looking to calm anxiety, stimulate creativity, or just find balance, grounding techniques can make a significant positive impact on your life and on your kiddo's life too. In your kiddo's life, excuse me. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. I hope that you found some beneficial information and you're able to apply some of these grounding techniques maybe in your home with your kiddo. This concludes our episode for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have a question, comment, or even a show topic that you would like to hear about, please feel free to send me an email at info@piecesformypuzzle.com. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, so you can get all the latest updates on podcast episodes being released. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Keep working on your puzzle, and remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.